The founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy is calling on a Democratic senator to apologize. On Wednesday, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut called his organization Islamophobic while voicing concerns over Secretary of State nominee Mike Pompeo. Let's take a listen.
Mike Pompeo was deeply intertwined with this network of anti-Muslim organizations. Another really interesting study that I hope some of you will take a look at that details this network of organizations. They have fairly innocuous sounding names like the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, the Middle East Forum, the Investigative Project on Terrorism, Jihad Watch, Act for America, the Center for Security Policy, the Society of Americans for National Excellence. Those sound like things that I might be for, but if you really take a look at what they do, they preach intolerance. They try to tell Americans that all Muslims are out to get them and that we are better off if we just shelter ourselves from people of the Muslim faith. That makes us less safe. It morally weakens us as a nation.
Joining me now is the founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, Dr. Judy Jasser. Dr. Jasser, nice to have you on the show with us. And as we heard there, according to Democratic Senator Chris Murphy, you preach intolerance, and you and your organization are telling Americans that all Muslims are out to get them. As a Muslim, how do you respond to this?
I have to tell you, not only am I horrified, but this is the United States Senate, and you might as well have been hearing from a representative of the Turkish AKP, of the Saudi Wahhabi regime, of some petro-Islamic interest out of Qatar, out of the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood. They could have written that speech for Senator Chris Murphy, and he would have said the exact same thing. He told his listeners, the American people, to go look at these organizations which he thinks are some type of conspiratorial network, basically calling takfir, saying that I, as the president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, is anti-Muslim and intolerant. In Saudi Arabia, that would be a declaration of apostasy and a death threat. And I think your viewers and Americans should pay attention to what's happening to our politicians. His radical partisanship has led him to read talking points from the Islamist advisors that are around him, or lobbyists. I hope he got millions of dollars of campaign money, because it makes no sense otherwise as to why an American senator would target reformists who really share his values of Americanism, anti-theocracy. We're religious, devout Muslims, and yet we're being attacked by a senator as being anti-Muslim.
Well, Dr. Jasser, this country was founded on the principle of separation of church and state. That's something that Democrats strongly advocate for, and that is certainly something that you advocate for, separation of mosque and state. Elaborate on that, and elaborate on why that is generating so much criticism.
Well, it's interesting where he mentioned that people should look at the network. Well, I joined Congressman Pompeo in criticizing an imam in Wichita, Kansas, when he was a congressman, that was preaching pro-Hamas hate. And we said there's nothing more pro-Muslim than preaching against the Islamist hate of Hamas imams that were speaking around this country. So our organization is founded not only on countering the symptom of terrorism, but the underbelly, the precursor, which is a theocratic mindset that mixes Sharia state identity and governmental law and state identity. So ultimately, the American experiment of the Establishment Clause separating mosque and state, we believe, allows us to practice our faith more freely and more Islamically in America than in any of the 56 OIC countries, which would love to shut us up the way Senator Murphy is trying to do. And I think ultimately that's why our mission is to separate mosque and state, because counterterrorism is simply countering a symptom, while the most pro-Islamic, pro-Muslim you can do is counter Islamism or theocracy like our country was founded on.
Dr. Jasser, you've mentioned that you've been attacked for being critical of the terrorist organization Hamas. Why is it that anyone critical of jihadist ideology is labeled as Islamophobic? If you are opposed to jihad, the holy war, the killing of those seen as enemies to fundamental Islam, as it's been translated, then you're now Islamophobic and intolerant?
And that's the bizarre thing, is nobody really goes beneath the surface of that ridiculous smear, which is to look at America's founding, where our founding fathers, Jefferson, Madison, were they Christian phobic because they rejected theocracy? No, they were devout Christians who wanted a government under God. So the Hamas types, the Brotherhood types, love to exploit our partisan axis in America, where the identity left wants to collectivize Muslims under one label, and the Islamic governments love to say that their Islam is the only Islam, and anyone who disagrees with them is un-Islamic. So they use terms like Islamophobia instead of talking about bigotry, because they want to invoke blasphemy laws in suppressing our free speech. So it is really important that if you really want to, if I, as a Muslim who loves my faith, we need some tough love so that we get beyond the surface of simply talking about Islam, but talk about anti-Islamism and pro-freedom and pro-liberty movements within Islam.
Dr. Justin, we did reach out to Senator Murphy's office for responses of airtime. They have not gotten back to us, but you've asked for an apology from Chris Murphy. Have you had any response?
I'm glad you brought that up. We have not. And I would welcome a meeting, as would, by the way, most of our Muslim reform movement are actually left of center. So whether it's Majid Nawaz, Ezra Nomani, Raheel Raza, we're not all conservatives. So he might be fixated and obsessed on the partisan politics and using us as an identity checkbox. But at the end of the day, we would love to sit with him and talk to him about women's rights, gay rights, freedom of speech, all the things that the left, he believes, supposedly stand for. And while I fight for that, he throws me under the bus as he tries to target Secretary of State Pompeo. So we would love to meet with him. I would ask people to call his office and demand an apology to us Muslims who are working on a hairline budget to try to fight a global billion-dollar petro-Islamic industry.
Well, we hope you get that response. Dr. Judy Jasser, thank you.
Thank you.